And so it begins. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be looking at a major announcement coming out of XRP today. Of course, I am referring to the fact that the largest asset manager in the United Kingdom, Aberdeen, has just tokenized their money market fund on top of XRP. Now, this announcement is a big deal, but it's a big deal for reasons that I don't think people quite understand yet. And what I want to do in this video is really simplify what's to come and perhaps one of the fundamental reasons why XRP is going to do exceptionally well. Remember, there's that 7-year pattern that we were looking at a breakout for. And today, you've very much broken out of it. So this is now a triggered pattern that we believe is going to take you to $19.27. Let's see what takes place. But we were very much expecting this move. We've had it. I always get this question as a little interesting side note. People always say to me all in, should I buy now? And first of all, we're not a financial advisor, but typically when I buy something, it's pre-move. I don't like to follow and chase something in. I like to buy on weakness, not strength. But I do still believe there's a lot of juice to be squeezed out of XRP. But that's not what we're going to be talking about in this video. The last video we did on XRP was around that. I think we got something like 60,000 views on it. And what we're going to be talking about today is the news that Ripple just announced that involves Aberdeen, the largest asset manager in the UK, massively held company by BlackRock, and the fact that they just tokenized their Lux money market fund on XRP. And what are money market funds? Well, money market funds are largely funds that invest in debt instruments that have a yield. So things like treasuries, etc., etc. And what we're seeing here, which is the interesting thing for me more so than anything, is the real application of XRP as it potentially is going to relate to solving the $36 trillion debt issue that the United States has. So money in its current form is changing with the implementation of distributed ledgers. We're looking at more than one form of money to be used to transact with. And actually what we're going to see is the enabling of debt to be used as a money. And this is going to do a number of things, certainly for the United States, which of course Ripple is always fought very hard to be a part of, and that's now paying dividends. You can actually, first of all, ensure the dollars roll globally. And we're going to look at a clip from Brian Brooks. We've already played this clip, but we're going to replay it in relation to the context of this video. What he talks about is how we can utilize distributed ledgers essentially to maintain the dollar's global role. And not only that, you can solve a debt collapse problem by putting support under the debt markets by essentially liquefying them and using them as payments. And this is why this news is so big. We're getting very complex and high end on all of this, but we'll talk you through it all. We're also, as the news is related to Archax, going to be replaying you a clip from our interview that we did with Graham, the CEO of Archax, where he actually spoke about them partnering with Ripple. And he spoke about this concept of using money market funds or perhaps debt instruments or instruments that are related to debt instruments and using them as a form of payment. And that is exactly potentially what this is all about. Okay, for now, this is them tokenizing a money market fund, but broadly, there's no reason why you couldn't use this as a form of payments moving forward, a yield-bearing form of payment. Because it's a money market fund, of course, it provides a yield, certainly whilst interest rates are as high as they are. And actually, there's a tsunami that's coming on the back end of all this. So the announcement today, in partnership with Archax and Aberdeen, we're excited to announce the first tokenized money market fund on the XRP ledger. The floodgates just opened, ladies and gentlemen. With 16 trillion in tokenized assets predicted by 2030, this milestone unlocks cost savings and settlement efficiencies by deploying capital market infrastructure on the XRP ledger. This is their official press release. Archax provides access to Aberdeen's money market funds on the XRP ledger in collaboration with Ripple. Archax, the first FCA, which is our kind of SEC, our watchdog in the UK, the first FCA-regulated digital asset exchange, broker and custodian, has provided access to a money market fund from UK asset manager Aberdeen in tokenized form on the XRP ledger, a decentralized blockchain. The fund comprises part of Aberdeen's $3.8 billion US liquidity fund, Lux fund, and represents the first tokenized money market fund on the XRP ledger, further establishing it as one of the leading blockchains for real-world assets, tokenization, and institutional decentralized finance. This milestone is a result of an ongoing collaboration between Archax and Ripple, the leader in enterprise blockchain and crypto solutions. It marks an important step towards unlocking operational cost savings and settlement efficiencies, I wonder what that may be, by deploying capital market infrastructure on the XRP ledger. According to McKinsey, tokenized money market funds already exceed 1 billion in assets under management, and some projections estimate the value of tokenized assets could reach 16 trillion by 2030, signaling strong market demand. Ripple will allocate USD $5 million in tokens on Aberdeen's Lux fund. Ripple's allocation represents part of a larger fund that Ripple will allocate to real-world assets on the XRP ledger, providing a range of asset managers, or provided by a range of asset managers. The next evolution of financial infrastructure will be driven by broader adoption of digital securities, said Duncan Moyer. We're going to play a clip of what Graham also had to say on this. Senior investment manager Aberdeen, real benefits are to be had from leveraging the efficiencies of moving the end-to-end investment and cash settlement process on-chain. The XRPL is an established venue for this thanks to institutional grade functionality, cost efficiencies, and built-in compliance capabilities. This is one reason XRP shines in a sea of blockchains that you can actually do tokenization on, because they have these compliance capabilities, which if you're going to use the likes of money market funds as a kind of a cash, then whoever you give that money market fund to needs to be able to hold a security. So we're a while off of this, but you can see where this is going to go, and it will become very evident by the end of this video. We are delighted to be working with Ripple and Archax to deliver this important milestone. The arrival of Aberdeen's money market funds on XRP's ledger demonstrates how real-world assets are being tokenized to enhance operational efficiencies while further reinforcing the XRP ledger as one of the leading blockchains for real-world asset tokenization, said Marcus Infanger, Senior Vice President at RippleX. There is no question that the on-chain economy is gaining traction. By working with companies like Archax, we're excited to help financial institutions like Aberdeen to seize the incredible opportunity represented by blockchain and digital asset technology to deliver utility at scale. Financial institutions are understanding the value of adopting digital assets for real-world use cases, said Graham Rodford. This is now real momentum building for tokenized real-world assets. And Archax is at the forefront of tokenizing assets such as equities, debt instruments, and money market funds in collaboration with Ripple. We're excited to help our clients such as Aberdeen, which manages over £500 billion in assets as of Q2 2024, so it's a quarter out, to bring to the XRP ledger. And it talks about a number of other things. But the real important thing here is the fact that, and what we're going to do now is play a clip of Graham actually talking about when the initial partnership was announced with Ripple, what really excites him about Ripple, that specializes in payments and how you could potentially use debt instruments, of which we've got plenty, and there's kind of a crisis in with the United States, as a form of payment. And that way you liquefy the debt. So the old kind of system of money where you have the asset, which is the cash, and the debt, which is the liability, because money is borrowed into existence, almost that liability kind of then goes back into the system as cash. So you almost kind of equalize the account, if you will. And this is going to fundamentally change markets. And this is only made available, certainly today, with what we have through distributed ledgers. And the premier distributed ledger to likely do all this is going to be Ripple, or XRP, I should say. Interesting. Let's play this clip of Graham. So Ripple was a recent partnership. The interesting thing I think about Ripple also is they already have a lot of connections within the kind of traditional world that may bring you guys to a similar point, if that makes sense. Is that something that you considered, or is there any kind of
Yeah,
workings with some of their other partners?
yeah. I mean, with everyone we work with, there is. I think the I said it the other day to someone, like the Ripple team are all fantastic to work with anyway. That means a lot to me that you can kind of collaborate with people, and their business is kind of, and I forget the names of all the parts, but it's kind of split into two in my mind. There's the payments bit and the other bit. And what I see happening in financial markets right now is this question about what you can use for payments coming up a bit more, because ordinarily we would use cash to pay for things. We might send cash via bank accounts, but if we were settling any form of financial transactions, we'd use cash. And what we've seen with the tokenization of money market funds, actually, sorry, starting with stable coins, like what is it, 130, 150 billion, something like that. Um, those guys are earning interest on other people's money, but it's being used for such a lot of transactions. Actually, people are starting to pay attention now. I think more volume went through Tether than Visa the other month, so
Yep.
these things are starting to become important. And then I think some of the people that run money market funds are kind of going, "Oh, hang on a second. If I put my money market fund on chain, I can be used for transactions, much like stable coins, but actually let the user keep some of their yield." And I get quite interested around that point. This idea that why would you have cash? Why would you take bank risk and have something which is usually lower yielding and not even paying you base rate for like, a standard bank account? If I could be holding a money market fund and whoever would accept it as some form of payment. Now there's a lot of regulation that exists around whether this is possible or not. There's a lot of friction doing AML KYC on everyone that holds a security. But this idea that it can be used for a payment. So one of the attractions of Ripple is, they've kind of majored on payments for a long time. So just seeing if there's a way that we can integrate payments on XRPO into their payment network is pretty interesting for me.
Graham talking there with myself. We'll leave a link to that full interview in the description about what's really exciting him and this idea of using kind of debt-based instruments to back the likes of a stable coin. So you're kind of almost issuing cash again, if that makes sense. And the fact that actually once you do that, you can get yield from them, which you can collect. So just for holding dollars, you don't need to be in a savings vehicle anymore. You could essentially be just in dollars, and you'll get like a stable coin interest on it that will just accrue in your account. And then you could actually use a debt-based currency or debt itself as a payment that will ultimately liquefy the debt and turn it back into an asset and no longer a liability. It's always kind of been an asset, but it would be seen even more so as that. So this essentially could unlock, if the entirety of the United States debt was to go down this route and be used, which is a far stretch for now, but certainly a good chunk of it, $36 trillion. And through doing that, you stave off a debt crisis. I think people have got this idea of a reset rather wrong. Because I think people believe that the reset occurs with the collapse of debt. And I think that seems very plausible and likely, doesn't it? But what happens if the debt markets get kind of liquefied through, or assetized? I don't know really what the word would be, or monetized, certainly. They already basically are a monetary instrument, but through the likes of stable coins and actually using them as payments. And that then takes what is a liability on somebody's balance sheet and essentially leverages it in the world once again. And from a United States point of view, they've got the most amount of debt in the world. The most amount of debt is in US dollars. Brian Brooks, which we're now going to jump on a clip of, really talks about this in front of Congress and how not only can this solve a problem of people dumping this and provide a buyer for it, but it can also sort of provide a global alternative and further the dollar's role globally in a really easy, accessible way. If you're in the UK right now and you want dollars, how do you get them? Or if you're in Africa, or if you're in, or parts of Africa, countries in Africa, or if you're in Asia, how do you get dollars? You can go to a money exchange, etc. Now you can just do it on an app on a phone. And actually, if your currency's a shitcoin, and there's going to be an abundance of them if this sort of colossal debt market tokenizes them. So let's listen to Brian Brooks, and then we're going to wrap the video up. Really getting into some quite high-end, complex things here, But it's actually a future that I think is very plausible. And I think you've got the Treasury highlighting in their report that this is a likely path forward for the debt markets and stable coins and the dollar. And it's a likely path forward for Ripple and XRP. And we're some of the few people that talk about this, not XRP being the currency itself, but being that enabler of value globally. And you can see that, there's such a large amount of volume in the debt markets that actually it's the perfect market to be tokenized and monetized. And this kind of, if you've got this, it's kind of like printing another $36 trillion again. If that makes sense. It's not quite going to be that way. But let's listen to this clip of Brian Brooks, then we'll come full circle and wrap the video up.
Well, Mr. Lukemeyer, it's terrific to see you again. And I'd give you a couple of thoughts on that important question. One is, if we start with stable coins before we talk about other crypto assets, I've said for a long time that the secular reduction in dollar holdings as a percentage of global central bank holdings is alarming. And this has been going on for more than 10 years at this point. So dollars as a share of the European Central Bank, the Japanese Central Bank, et cetera, has shrunk from 80+% to more like 60+% in a short amount of time. What that tells me is that in the future, with the rise of China and other major economies, the US dollar can't take its primacy for granted, and we need to start thinking about competing on utility, on features, not just based on a post-World War II monetary system that we could take for granted for the last 2 generations. And that's one of the reasons that I've been such a supporter of internet-enabled dollars, which allow us to compete on features, not only on history. I think that's really critically important. The second thing I would tell you is, as we enter year 11 or 12 of a highly inflationary environment, after all, we've been printing enormous numbers of new dollars since the financial crisis, there will come a time, gradually then suddenly, when the attractiveness of the dollar relative to other currencies could change. One of the benefits of the crypto economy is that it creates some counter incentives on the part of the Fed to do that kind of policy, because people will flee to other kinds of assets. And that sort of market competition is something that I think will ultimately shore up our monetary policy and keep the dollar where it rightfully ought to be, which is as the dominant reserve currency it's been for all of our lives.
So Brian Brooks really highlighting the kind of nature of this technology. Of course, Brian Brooks was in the running to become SEC chair. Or was he Treasury? It was either Treasury or SEC chair. I don't think he's going to become either, but I think he's going to play a role in government. Of course, Teresa Gulliam is Trump's sort of favorite pick. She tweeted this the other day: make the SEC great again, make crypto great again. So she's very on board. But Brian Brooks really highlighting something that needs to happen with the United States dollar. There needs to be that innovation. It comes from this space. And he also highlights the dumping of debt. And actually, even the likes of the Treasury are talking about actually how you can implement, and other people in the US government talking about how you can actually implement this technology to provide that demand for them through stable coins and tokenization. And actually, if you look at the likes of Tether, they back their USDT up with treasuries. You could almost just have the treasuries and the value of that to be used as a payment. So my head is going all over the place now because I'm thinking of all these ways to kind of explain things to you. But I want to know if you guys are sort of on board with what I'm saying here, if you can see this and what your thoughts generally are about the whole situation. But the news today is huge. It's the beginning of something far greater to come, and that's the tokenization of money market funds, debt-based instruments, ultimately potentially to be used by payments on the Ripple ledger. And XRP is likely going to play the sort of bridge asset in that whole game and potentially see trillions and trillions of values go through it as a result of it. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching. See you all soon.